side of the street.
We're going to call the Santa Barbara City Council meeting to order, please. Will you please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance with us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you please call the roll? Thanks.
Councilmember Falcone? Here. Francisco?
Here.
Horton?
Here.
House?
Here.
Schneider? Here. Williams? Here. Mayor Bloom?
Here. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes, Madam Mayor?
Okay. We have public comment. I have several people here. Tom Farum from the County Flood Control. You have a complaint against the city, Tom? No. Oh, let me.
My dad was in one of the shows, Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I'm going to have a hard time doing that before you today. Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'm passing out some pictures, as you have no doubt seen in the news. The long-awaited start of the Lower Mission Creek project began at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning. And I recall we were talking about this project with Mr. Kelly back in front of you. I think it was in October of 2007, just over a year ago. And we were looking forward to this moment. And we all recognized that we had a lot of work in front of us, but you can't get the work done until you start. And so I'm pleased to report that today we've started. And when we go back to Washington, D.C. to lobby for more money, this is no longer the planned Mission Creek project. This is the under construction Lower Mission Creek project. So it was just worth coming down in front of you today to highlight for you and the citizens watching that the county and the city have been working cooperatively on this for probably more years than we want to admit, but it's a good day to just be happy that this project is moving forward. And I also remember we talked about some of the obstacles in front of us back in October. And since that time, we now have, through the IRWIMP, we have a state grant for another piece of this. So the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together. And while I think it's still going to be a long trip, we're past the starting line. The starting line's behind us, and pieces are going to start to come together. And so I hope you're as enthusiastic and happy as I am, but I just want to thank you and your staff for all the help. Obviously, we couldn't have done this alone, and it's a good partnership, and I'm just ecstatic that this part, which is, as you recall, is the critical piece. This is the one piece that could have stopped the whole project, and it's going to be done at 6 o'clock tonight. So, Madam Mayor, thank you very much, and look forward to working with the city on the rest of this project.
That's amazing. You just started, and it's going to be done tonight. How did that happen?
Madam Mayor, I think it's important. You brought up the UP Railroad.
Oh, of course.
They are doing this work, and they work around the clock because they can't keep their rail lines shut down for a long period of time. And that reminds me, I think the city and the county both owe a debt of gratitude to the cooperation from UP. They are doing this themselves. We're paying for it, but to do a job like that, there's probably no one better equipped to do it than the UP themselves. And they don't fool around. They get in there and get it done, and it's just phenomenal. And we owe a lot of thanks to the UP Railroad for their help on this.
Okay, thanks for coming by, Tom. I appreciate it. Yes, Ms. Falcone.
Just on that same line, there was a bridge, a viaduct that they needed replaced. Can you tell us in what sort of time span they did that? Because my understanding is that it was to lift the bridge out and replace the new bridge back in, which is over by Cabrillo, Hot Springs. It's where the train track is right there, is my understanding on Cabrillo. It was something like 24 hours.
Yeah.
It was extraordinary.
Madam Mayor, Councilwoman Falcone, I was going to say 48 hours. I was looking back to Mr. Kelly if he knew. That's how they work.
Pat, was it 24?
Wow.
Yes.
They measure their construction project in hours, and
when they
we
want
measure
something
ours
done, they
in
get
days
it
and
done, don't
peaks.
they?
But we're very happy, and this project's moving forward. We are now under construction.
Yeah, that's absolutely terrific.
Very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming. We like good news. That's a good one. No more flooding down there. It'd have to be a 1,000-year flood or something to cause any problems down there. Good. David Daniel Diaz will be followed by Hans Christner.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. I got an earful last night and this morning from people who went to the meeting with regards to the T fire in Montecito, and I just heard sugar-coated, what's going on, we're talking, we get cut off. I was thinking, ever since I was a kid with the Coyote Fire, then we had all these different fires, you know, the Sycamore fires, the Payne fires. Why haven't we established something in the local governments to help facilitate our residents in need after these disasters? Because it's the same game and nobody knows. Everyone's situation is different. Like with the SBA loans, I talked with the family and they want me to advocate for them through the SBA because they own their homes, they own their business, and they're still being denied credit because the SBA feels they won't be able to pay back the loan. But they're homeowners. I mean, doesn't the federal government want to have land to sell to make more money? I mean, aren't they like everybody else? But it's very confusing. Dismayed is what I am to see that the same old garbage is still going on, and it'd be nice. And with regards to the SBA loans, if you're denied, send copies to Lois Capps' office. It's federal, and the federal government already knows. They have your application. So let her know so she can, and her office can work on advocating to what's best and finding a medium for everyone. And let's just hope all this passes in a positive way and we can learn and establish something so in future disasters we don't have to go through the same game all the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hans Kirchner, followed by Michael Self.
Madam Mayor and members, I come on a pretty personal note every time I show up. It's never been to complain, but to pray for you. And it's personal because today, more than usual, it's a very personal prayer. And I say it's personal because I do come on behalf of a praying Christian community that lifts you up and prays for you to have wisdom and understanding and guidance to do your job. And I also come on behalf of a part of our community that is in great need, and as a part of a community that all of us are a part of that's going through a difficult financial time and difficult family times that are just multiplied and accentuated by our condition. So knowing that you love and must live by rules and regulations all the time, you have the distinct honor of being in a place where you have to provide interpretation at times, and grace and forgiveness is something that's probably difficult for you to leverage because you are bound by all of those guidelines and principles. But my prayer for you today is personal because I pray that each of you would experience the unconditional gift of grace and love and second and 22nd chances from God, so that you could also lead our community to be a community that is able to also reflect and offer second chances and 22nd chances in love. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Self will be followed by Bob Hanson.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. In December, the manager of the the manager of the Traffic Division spoke at the Transportation Circulation Committee and said that the project for the reconfiguration of State and Delavina would be next going to the ABR for review. This has always been understood to be the process. Over 15 months ago, the ABR denied the current plan and asked to see something less costly and less drastic. And so we don't understand why this has been changed, and now you will rule on this project February 10th. It seems like it's an unusual tack for this project to take. And my understanding, it takes two of you to ask for a change on the agenda. And I am asking if there are two of you who are willing to put this back on the normal process. Basically, the community is being denied by this action an ability to compromise with this project. It is highly contentious in the community with very polarized groups. And I hope you're aware that the project in its current state as being presented is 60% complete. Now, I don't see how you could be expected to make a ruling of approval on something that's 60% complete. I don't think you would do that for a personal project you had. And some have told me that they feel this is a make-work project. I'm not sure that it is. But it is your responsibility to the citizens of Santa Barbara to be very prudent in fiscal matters. And this is also a fiscal matter. And we're in very troubled times right now, both at all levels of government. And I'd like to read a quote from Thomas Jefferson. "A wise and frugal government which shall leave men free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor and bread it has earned. This is the sum of good government." Thank you.
Bob Hanson will be followed by Lazarus. And then our last speaker will be Ruth Wilson.
Hello. On Martin Luther King's birthday, people felt that they could park in the parking lot here was a Monday and walk up to the Granada and be safe. And I was told that it would be hard to put signs out there to say, oh, this day and that day it's not proper to park there. But it was a holiday. So the police department could sit there and say, it's a holiday. But they didn't. They gave tickets to everyone that was parked in the parking lot. Left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths about that situation. Now, bringing our country home, bringing our community home, can you tell a bad homeless person from a good homeless person? A good homeless person goes to the shelters that are basically run like concentration camps or jails and has to put up with all that, and really not to be there all day, but they just get to sleep there at night, and during the day they get kicked out most of the time. The bad homeless person decides, you know what, I don't want to go through that. So he's labeled bad, and the good one goes to the shelter, he's labeled good. And that's wrong, I think. On the 29th, this Thursday, from 4 to 6, they're going to be introducing the draft that they've been working on for the last 3 or 4 months. Helene Schneider and Dale Francisco and Ia. And between 4 and 6 at City Hall here, so I encourage people to come here and see what's happening. Because what happened with this RV law, basically they're almost running the RVers out of town. It'd be nice to have some place to call home 24/7. Another situation happening in our community is talking about how many homeless people are in Carpinteria. 4 people. Now, come on. There's probably undocumented workers that just number quite a few that are living in the bushes. I know in the Carpinteria area. So anyway, today they had a count on the homeless. Why wasn't the police department in on this count? And make sure we have a good count so we can get more money, right, to help the people. Something's wrong with this situation. So as it goes, it would be nice if Obama could make a emergency situation saying, our country has a situation that's terrible in all these big communities, and our small ones too. We could open up buildings, we could open up parking lots, we could do something. But no, cities all across America are doing enforcement. They're not coming up with solutions. You know that. We all know that. And it'd be nice to come up with solutions. Have enforcement, but have solutions too. Housing is a great thing, but we don't have enough. So empty buildings, there's lots of them. Empty parking lots, there's lots of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Lazarus will be followed by Ruth Wilson.
Hello there, Madam Mayor and ladies and gentlemen, City Council. You all know me. You've known me for 15 years, and I'm still homeless. Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of solutions, does there? I don't want to be homeless. I have applied for assistance. I've applied for a passport. I'm not even allowed to have, a post office box this big, okay? That's how much space I'm allowed to have in this country. I'm not allowed to leave. You know what that constitutes, as I've written is, it was unofficial. Now, since you all are aware of it, it is an official death sentence. No, I shall die by your oppression. You have this huge backlog of people who are in the same situation as me, like Bob. There's thousands of them. And with the economy and the shape it is today, you can expect a lot more. And with the economy in the shape it is today, how are you going to afford to do what you're doing now? Like, I mean, God, I mean, a couple years ago, I mean, you must have spent like $3,000 taking me to court on charges that were all dismissed, except for one. I'm going to go to court on that in a couple weeks. But, you know, I think, you know, given my situation, I don't think this court has jurisdiction. You know, we're going to argue that because they cannot provide a remedy to the things that are causing the problem. They have no jurisdiction over my passport. They don't have any jurisdiction over the post office. They don't have any jurisdiction over Social Security, which has not given me assistance, which, by the way, I've had $200 in assistance in the 15 years I've been on the street. Yeah, and cash assistance, real money. Wow, isn't that amazing? You know? I mean, I'm almost less than human. You know? I mean, to say you people haven't officially sentenced me to die on the streets of this country would be a lie. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Ruth Wilson will be the last speaker.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and City Council members. It's a privilege to be able to speak to you. I'm sad to bring this message today because I know you really care about what's going on with the homeless people. And you know, we're doing Holy Chaos on Sundays, our gatherings, and we're getting to know a lot of people, and each of them has their own individual story. Now, yesterday morning when we were going to the YMCA to work out, there was a homeless man across the street who had been out all night, and the paramedics were out trying to resuscitate him and were unable to do so. We talked to Ken Williams last night. I was hoping I could find out his name, but Ken did not have it. But he said there are 4 who have died this month so far. So I thought maybe we could just bow our heads in silent prayer, just for one moment, in memory of these 4 people.
Thank you.
So it occurs to me to just say, because I know this is televised, I know that you're all doing a lot to improve the situation. But, you know, I was speaking to Frank Mannix, and one of the things he said to me was that it takes 16 people to come around one homeless person to really rehabilitate them. I really believe that. And so I appeal to the whole community to have compassion, and maybe if each of us in the community would stop and speak to a homeless person, befriend a homeless person in some way, that this would go far in helping us with this problem. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. We have no more speaker slips, so we have the consent calendar. Brenda, you need to read something by title only, please. Title 3, number 3.
Item number 3, adoption of ordinance for a lease agreement with AGRX. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara approving a lease agreement between the City of Santa Barbara and AGRX for operation of an agricultural supply business at the Santa Barbara Municipal Airport.
Okay, that was reading by title only, and without objection, we'll waive further reading. Is there anything you want to take off? I think item 6.
Item 6, Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
please.
Item 5. Item 5 also? Okay. Anything else? Okay, go ahead and read the title of item 5, please.
Item number 5, change order request for solid waste rate study consultant.
Okay. Mr. Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I looked at this item and I realized that in absolute dollar terms, we're not talking about the biggest project in the world, but it is quite an increase over what was originally estimated. And since I had questions about it, I thought other people might as well.
Okay.
Specifically, my first question, and the most obvious question for staff, is the source of these funds. Is this coming from the general fund, or where is it coming from?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Member Francisco, my name is Bob Samario. The funding for this study is coming from the Solid Waste Fund, which is an enterprise fund. It's separate from the general fund. It's sort of like our water and wastewater fund. It's funded from fees and service charges to our customers.
And the second question I had is, I read the report, obviously, but could you give us a little more detail on exactly what the expanded scope of this study is meant to cover?
Sure. I think when we first set out to define the scope of this project, we recognized that this was kind of the first of its kind, modeling new rates, new incentives, new rate structure, and building in a lot of assumptions about people's behavior and how they're going to respond to different rate structures. And so we gave it our best shot as to how much we thought it would cost, what the scope of the work would be, how many hours. But it became clear in the last month that we needed more time, more effort from our consultant to complete the project. It didn't really change the scope of the work. It's just that it's taken more time, more involvement. We're working with our haulers extensively, and it's just a bigger project than we envisioned 6 months ago.
Uh-huh. And so the final outcome of this project will be what?
Well, the final output of this project will be, there'll be several things. As you know, we are planning on July 1 to roll out a new program, our food scraps recovery and composting program. So first and foremost, the rate study is helping us to create new rates for that new program within the whole scheme of our existing rate structure. And as you know, one of the requirements in our contract with the haulers is that any changes we make to rates, that we do it in a way that the revenues to those haulers aren't affected. So it's revenue neutrality. So it's incorporating a new program and doing so in a way that ensures revenue neutrality. But the rate study also is going to help us to work on different scenarios for creating more incentives for our business sector. It's for this business sector to divert more from their trash can to other containers. So we're trying to evaluate different alternatives for how aggressive we might want to be or not want to be with those incentives to our ratepayers. And then lastly, we also want to just cure some structural problems we have with our rates. There are some anomalies in there that create disincentives for recycling or diversion, and there were just some weird things in our rates that we want to fix in connection with this. So we're really revamping our rates in its entirety, or in their entirety, with those three things in mind.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Samario.
Welcome.
Okay, do you need to vote on this separately?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Item 6, go ahead and read it, Brenda. Thanks.
Item number 6, special weapons and tactics, weapons exchange and purchase.
Okay. Many of us wanted to take this off, but shall we let Ms. Falcone go ahead?
Thank you. There's some questions have been asked with regard to the resale of the weapons that we would be trading in for upgrades to the police department inventory. And the company that has been chosen or is suggested that we choose, really what they do primarily is they take old live weapons from institutions in various places like ours, and they disarm them, and they then make them inert and inactive, and they make them movie and television props. So that is the plan for these weapons. There was some lack of specificity in the CAR, but we've been now provided with a letter dated October 22nd from the Cinema Weaponry outfit, which is the group, the business that we would be turning the weapons into and then purchasing through them the upgraded weapons. And it says on the second page of this letter that, quote, your old weapons will be utilized in our motion picture prop inventory. The firearms will be converted to blank firing only, and the firearms will not be resold to the general public. I was wondering, Captain, whether or not we are able to add just another little piece of language that says, or another government entity, in that I don't think it's certainly my desire to see these weapons back out into any population, that if they say and they promise and they guarantee that they're going to turn these weapons into inert, non-firing weapons, that we should make sure that that's a blanket sort of guarantee as opposed to just into the general public. It doesn't cover governmental entities. And I thank you for this letter, and I think it makes people a little more reassured that these won't fall into the wrong hands, given that this is really a weapons movie company. It's not necessarily an entity that we understand as dealing with weapons like the Army or the government or something. So it makes me feel a little more comfortable. Captain Altavia.
Madam Mayor, Council Member Falcone, I'm Alex Altavilla. I'm a captain with the police department, and we could entertain adding a clause of such. Currently, cinema weaponry will make them inert. As a automatic firearms dealer, they do have the ability to sell them to another governmental agency. However, the agreement that we have made with them is that they will be rendered inert and not go back to the general public, which would be illegal anyway.
And if that is the case, then adding the language that specifically calls out other governmental agencies, I think is, I mean, if they're going to render them inert, what governmental agency is going to want them?
Correct.
So I think it's language without necessarily any implication except to call it out and make it specific. Mr. Armstrong.
No, I was just going to ask Captain Altavia to also brief the council on some of the due diligence they did to check this company out to make sure that they're legit.
Thanks.
Thank you, Madam
Mayor. The due diligence that we conducted, I went ahead and actually spoke with ATF and DOJ, which issues the federal and state licenses to cinema weaponry. And my understanding is from both of those organizations that cinema weaponry's license is in good standing and there is no adverse claims against them whatsoever. And the opinion from those organizations is it's a very reputable business.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have what I need. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. House?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My understanding is still, though, that cinema weaponry does resell and resell weapons that can fire live ammunition to government agencies, not just to the movie industry. Am I correct in that understanding?
Their firearms permit allows them to sell automatic weapons to law enforcement and to military organizations. That's correct.
That can actually fire live rounds and can be used in law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
You know, I think I would really like, and with the concurrence of my colleagues, to request that you do include that kind of language in the that you mentioned a moment ago, because I really think that once we're done with these and we move them along, I think from perhaps more of a public safety perspective, really, we would like to make sure that these are used only for cinematic purposes, the ones that I think the public expected, but not that they would be resold again as weapons that could be used, and it could maybe even get back on the streets, which may have happened in the past somehow. So I'd rather, if there's any way that we could make sure that these don't get a chance to get back in the public, I would appreciate it, but maybe the others want to weigh in on that too.
Mr. House, you're just talking about our guns.
Yeah, the ones that we're
anything else that has to do with
we
the
can't
company.
control everything.
That's
we do.
right.
But I'm talking about the ones that come from the city of Santa Barbara, and it sounds like that fits their business model fine. But I just want to make sure that we're really careful that the guns that come from the city of Santa Barbara can't get back out on the street.
We can go ahead and entertain that language, the fact that they will be rendered inert or not be sold to the general public or any other law enforcement organization.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Williams?
Now, what do you mean by rendering them inert? Because to fire a blanks, they still need to be able to fire rounds. So what do they do to them?
I think that my understanding is they typically go ahead and, I guess for lack of a better term, cork the barrel. So they're able to actually go ahead and fire the blank. However, it's not able to go ahead and actually deploy a projectile.
Yeah. And I guess this is the last question just for the city attorney. Obviously, we're going to need to have a written agreement to include that language, not just a letter from us or from them, right? And would we see that, or is that something that we delegate to the city administrator, or what would we do?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember
Yes.
Williams, I was going to suggest that we just, that actually, and that we revise the recommendation of the state at the end and approve the exchange and purchase of new weapons and equipment from Cinema Weaponry in the form of a written agreement acceptable to the city administrator and approved as to form by the city attorney.
So moved.
Okay, so you want to vote on this separately from the consent calendar is what you want. Is that right, Ms. Falcone?
I don't.
Or we could
Yes,
vote for
because
it.
there is an
Or we could
amendment.
vote for
We've
it
made a
as
change,
amended.
and we have a motion and a second, so I think we
Okay.
might as well just go ahead and call it out and do it separately.
Sure. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Just so people who are listening at home can make sense of any of this, because it's very strange a little bit when you think about it. I don't know either. There was a question about a police chief in
The Dominican Republic? No,
No, it wasn't Eureka either. It was somewhere up north.
Trinidad, California.
Trinidad, thank you. And what happened was they got some weapons just like we're doing this. He took 2 of those weapons and left the job with those weapons, which wasn't his to take because they're supposed to stay with the department. And he went to a different department. And so he was indicted on those. And I don't know, it's as if he was convicted. But when I read all the news reports, it had nothing to do with Cinema Weaponry. It had to do with the police chief, and I know people are innocent until proven guilty, but that's what the news.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I'll give you a kind of a brief timeline.
Yeah.
Because I spoke with the actual Trinidad police
Good.
chief, the
Okay,
current
thank
chief, along with the Humboldt County DA's office, ATF, and DOJ.
Thank you.
And the timeline is as such, is that we as an organization did our due diligence based on the letter that you have in front of us dated October 22nd. This was just brought to our attention yesterday, and when I spoke with the chief up at Trinidad on November 12th, these charges were brought forward involving the weapons, and they were made public. According to the chief, the past chief had no authority to take the weapons and did not elicit any kind of city council approval. There was no criminal wrongdoing, according to the Humboldt County DA's office, on the part of Cinema Weaponry. Their paperwork was all completed in a timely manner and done appropriately. They currently have a valid state and federal license to go ahead and deal in automatic weapons, and there are no adverse actions against Cinema Weaponry at this particular point in time. And based on that, it just appears to be kind of an unfortunate distraction. I have no factual basis to lead me to believe that Cinema Weaponry is other than a very reputable business.
Okay, thank you very much. I just had to fill that in because some people watch this and want to think that we're doing something here. Sometimes we talk in kind of funny words, and it's hard for people to understand governmentese or whatever that is. So thank you very much for that due diligence. Mr. Horton.
I was wondering if I could move consent calendar at this point.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, on to item, whoa. We have such a short thing here. On to report from Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Finance Committee met today at 1 p.m. We discussed the December 31st investment report and the December 31st fiscal agent report. Finance Committee recommended that both reports be forwarded to council, and with the acceptance of the consent calendar, you have approved those reports.
Okay, thank you very much. Good. Item number 9 and 10.
Item number 9 and 10, conference with legal counsel, pending litigation.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will adjourn out of that, right? Okay, thank you very much.
Is this the shortest city council meeting in history?
No, actually, we had one that was about 11 minutes long.
Okay.